Welcome to my series, the Dr. Detective, a PhD, True Crime Podcast. I am your host, the Dr. Detective Troy Looney, 32 years in law enforcement, author, writer, host, professor, and now podcast host, right? So we're going to get into some interesting talks and stories. Before we do that, I just want to introduce the series brought to you by the STS Nation family, the True Crime Talk channel. So you can like and subscribe at youtube.com, the Dr. Detective, or at the STS Talk True Crime channel. So again, we're going to talk about several different stories, several different forensic tips along the way, a variety of elements and components and guest panel speakers we're going to have. But today, pretty wild story. This one involves a man who tried to buy someone's child. He tried to buy a baby and offered a considerable amount of cash to do so. $500,000 starting bid, right? Willing to pay in cash or crypto. Before we get into the story, we're going to take a look at the video, and this will provide some context to what we're going to discuss.
A bizarre chain of events, and now a man is in jail accused of offering $500,000 to a local family to buy their baby.
According to an arrest affidavit, Jose Teran Jr. reportedly told the father of the child he buys babies for their organs. And tonight, police say Teran is tied to another big story we covered this week.
KENS 5's Vanessa Croy explains the crime connection and how detectives cracked the case.
A series of text messages leaves a local family in fear for their lives. Police say Jose Israel Teran Jr. offered $500,000 to buy the family's baby, saying he purchases babies for their organs. The strange twist of events happened in late December when the child's mother sent a group text inviting family members to her daughter's baptism. Immediately after sending, the woman got a chilling response from a number she didn't recognize, asking the mother how much she wanted for her baby. Police say the mother blocked that number after responding, "Wrong number." But investigators say the unknown texter continued sending texts to the rest of the group offering to buy the baby. According to an arrest warrant, the man behind the mysterious text is Jose Teran Jr. San Antonio police say Teran was being charged with a misdemeanor crime for sending those bizarre text messages. But detectives say as they were writing up that arrest warrant, they figured out that Teran was already in jail, booked on an unrelated charge. On Monday, San Antonio police were called out to a road rage shooting off I-35. Investigators say the driver of an SUV shot the driver of a big rig in the leg. The alleged shooter was identified by police as Jose Teran Jr., the same man accused of trying to purchase a family's baby. According to that arrest warrant, when Teran was questioned about the bizarre text messages to the family, he admitted to being the sender, telling detectives he thought the message thread was spam. Teran is now in jail facing 2 charges: the purchase sale of human organs and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Vanessa Croy, KENS 5.
Pretty wild, right? So this guy, Jose Teran Jr., again, fortunately, he was added to the text because who knows what else he's done, what else he's involved in. But this is how it came to the attention of the family, came to the attention of the police, right? So again, unfortunately, yeah, this is a wild story, but we're going to talk about this. So 21-year-old male, right? So could he have potentially had access to that kind of capital? Or some other questions will be presented talking about, is he working with someone else or an agency or part of a larger problem, right? This is a huge concern. So police did arrest him, and he said he made the offer to the family. Yeah, I purchased babies to harvest their organs. So organ trafficking is a huge problem and very terrifying just to consider. This was their 9-month-old child, right? And they're considering baptism and so forth, and just having a discussion about that process. And then you get this creepy text from this guy, right? So fortunately, as the video stated, he was already in custody for a road rage shooting. So he'd already shot someone else during road rage, and police discovered after the surveillance, the text messages, cell phone messages, and the forensic analysis of that. So fortunately, he was already in custody, which made it a lot easier. Who knows if he could have been a flight risk or what have you. But this is that road rage incident, some of the video from that. So how this happened, we know that the family was actually contacted by him, right? So they're contacted. He was using the same telephone number or a previous number by a family member, and contacted them. Again, as stated, there was some question of whether this is a joke or not, but the father, uncle took initiative, contacted the police, and set up a meeting with this gentleman, right? So he wanted to pay starting bid of $500,000 in cash or cryptocurrency, right? So just to have access to that capital, it very well could have been a scam, but this sounds like he was pretty serious about his offer. And obviously they shared photos during the group text and so forth. So he wanted to meet that night also, which is even more scary. He's ready and willing. So how was he caught by police? Essentially, the cell phone, the text message, the interaction with family, right? They were tracking that, and to find he was in jail. Of course, this culminated in an interview that took place, right? So during the interview, he stated to police he thought it was spam. Right. Of course, he couldn't explain. I'm sure he fumbled on his words. That would be a pretty interesting interview to cover, and we may dial back to this case in the future to talk about some of the components. If we can find his interview, we'll talk about listening to that, kind of analyze, some of the key points, maybe statements made by him, and how he couldn't explain. I'm sure he was fumbling over his words and just saying anything to throw them off or just create misdirection, right? As suspects often do. So again, he said he thought it was spam. No, we know it's not the case, right? I want to talk about some of my training. I've engaged in some of these weird experiences that I've been subjected to, but that made me a better investigator. And just to bring public awareness, right? All this is for public awareness. Again, the allure of true crime, unfortunately, has that component, but we can learn a lot of things from a lot of different stories, a lot of different scenarios. So during my track as a master criminal investigator to obtain my certification, I took a course called Advanced Internet Investigations. What that entailed basically was the controlled environment of 12 investigators through OPATA, or our Attorney General's certification platform and training facility. We were in a controlled environment, and there were about 12 of us. We set up fake profiles as young adults or children, and this was part of the training exercise. So within 2 minutes or less of setting up and launching I believe at the time it was Facebook, our Facebook fake profiles, I had 3 online predators contact me. And that's a room of 12 students, investigators, right? Myself, I had 3 online predators contact me. And these gentlemen were showing private parts, exposing themselves on video, on camera, willing to set up a meeting. They were trying to meet with me, who they thought was my child profile. They were trying to set up meetings with a child, right? To meet in person, and within 2 minutes, right? Less than 2 minutes. And that was not just myself. The other 11 investigators also had at least 2 or 3 other online predators contact them as well. So serious problem, very creepy, very dangerous, right? This is a huge thing. And who knows what their intention was, but that was my experience, what I experienced during training, a 3-day session of training. So human trafficking is really believed to be the fastest growing criminal enterprise, right? This may even surpass the drug trade or drug trafficking, right? So we're talking money laundering. As you can imagine, some of the stats, there's various stats out there. This talks about the industry being $150 billion for human trafficking. We're not even talking the organ trafficking, such as this case with Jose Teran Jr., right? That was his stated goal initially. $150 billion industry. That's a problem, huge problem. Annually, roughly $33 billion. Just in the U.S. alone, they mentioned $9.5 billion as being generated with human trafficking. So again, we're talking about bringing awareness. We're talking about what can we do to protect our kids, protect our loved ones, protect ourselves. It's not a problem that's just centric to minors, but to adults as well, and ourselves. All of us have to be aware, have situational awareness, and be inquisitive, right, about our loved ones, about our children specifically. The FBI has a report that says there's about 500 to 750,000 predators online all the time, any given day. So that is just a number. And this was from a 2011 statistic, right? So 500 to 750,000, probably close to 1 million or more by now, right? Staggering, terrifying numbers to consider. Some other stats talk about 50 million people, or 1 in every 151 of us, are potentially a victim of human trafficking. Part of that monies are the illegal monies that are generated. 1 out of 4 victims are children, and the demographic state, about 71% are women and girls. So just some stats to be aware of. Again, for awareness purposes, educational purposes, right? Terrifying, but definitely we have to pay attention and be aware of what is going on, right? Pay attention to the clues and signs. So again, 26% being children. Roughly, different stats will tell you it's still in the millions and in the $1 billion range, but this is a number that says about 49.6 million people are enslaved today that we're aware of. That's just what we're aware of, right? So again, we all have to do our part to say something. If you see something, say something. If you're not sure, report anyway. Make the call, right? If it looks unusual, right? Be aware in parking lots, be aware in various situations, be aware when traveling, travel in pairs, stay together at all times, right? So all the tips that we've heard, but just to bring some additional awareness to this, with this case, like with Jose Teran Jr., organ trafficking was the specific target. That was his specific goal, what he had in mind. So these stats talk about organ trafficking, just to consider the amount of time in terms of when these predators are trying to obtain organs for sale or for harvesting, right? The stat says 4 to 6 hours for heart and lungs, what's required for harvesting, right? Versus various parts of the body. So we're talking hours and days essentially, right? For any part or any kind of organ, which is just unimaginable to consider, but we have to be aware of what's going on. We have to be aware and pay attention. Other considerations, things I like to consider for this Jose Teran Jr., 21 years of age. What comes to mind for me is, who else might be involved? Who else is he connected to? Does he have other ties to agencies or organizations that he's working with, right? Who's funding this? Who's funding this type of trafficking situation or scenario, whether it be human, organ, or any other type of illegal activities? How's he being funded? Especially since he mentioned crypto, cash and or cryptocurrency, being willing to pay that night, right? Or start the bid at least that evening, but willing to meet immediately. So his intentions, and again, as I said, other considerations. Who's he working with? What 21-year-old has access to $500,000 just like that, right? What's his background? I would consider other additional questions about, investigating, looking at his profile. And I'm sure police are doing this. I'm sure investigators have looked at this. They're doing this or conducting the investigation as an ongoing process, right? Trying to obtain information. Maybe he's been forthcoming about his background. Maybe there's previous other arrest records besides the shooting that took place, right? So what else can we find or investigate? Because this appears to be just the tip of what's going on, just the start of potentially what's happening, what he's involved in. There are several organizations that do assist and offer support for bringing awareness for us and our children, right? This organization I want to share called ourrescue.org. It's about talking, increasing the communications, increasing the awareness, being vigilant about being inquisitive when kids are involved with technology, kids and or adults, right? We all have our technology. We're kind of, I guess it's a part of our lifestyle. We're like codependent essentially on these devices, right? So they, if you lose your phone, you're like in a panic, right? Where's my phone, right? Where's my computer and so forth? They're integrated in every part, every aspect of our lives. Well, kids are no different, right? They love technology. Try to take your kid's phone away, right? And see what happens, see what kind of misery you get or what kind of response you get, essentially, right? But we have to be inquisitive. We have to be nosy. We can't afford to allow these predators to just take over, take charge, and just do anything, because they are contacting the kids, believe it or not. They're contacting them not just on social media, but on the gaming devices, but specifically social media. They're posing as people, avatars and so forth, just a wide, diverse range of ways that they try to engage the kids. So this agency's come up with a brochure, a website, essentially talks about some stats and demographics. It says children ages 8 to 12 spend about 4 to 6 hours a day watching or using some kind of screen. I think it's a lot higher than that, right? That's fair to say. I'm sure I spend probably a lot of time on the computer or on the screen or watching or looking or checking up the device and so forth. Plus social media is instant, right? It's always right there, right? The TikToks and the other platforms and so forth. So we use that to our advantage. We use it with for entertainment, but also the predators are there because they know, guess what? The people are there, the kids are there. So they are targeting all of us, essentially. Without education, we're just exposed. We're exposed, right? So that's the obvious things. Some other things to be aware of or consider. Some research from this organization, ourrescue.org, says 1 in 3 children are first exposed to social media at an age of 5 or younger. We got to do a better job, right? Can we be with our kids 24/7? They have to go to school, daycare, and so forth. But we can be aware, right? Nothing wrong with a board game, right? Some of you are like, board game, right? Yeah, I still play those too. Again, but this so stats talk about 1 in 3 children should expect or can now expect to have some kind of unwelcome sexual experience online or some kind of exposure to some kind of content that's been distributed or shared or showed, right? And it goes on to talk about demographics and the percentage of children exposed under the age of 13, those with intellectual disabilities or special needs and so forth, and or protected populations, LGBTQ plus kids and so forth, 2 to 4 times more likely to be sent explicit images or send images between themselves and their peers, right? So lots of different demographics. So this all is consistent with what's called grooming, right? These predators are accessing individuals, adult and children, and they're kind of grooming. So what actually is grooming, right? We've all heard the term, but what is it? So this organization defines this as the process where an offender builds a relationship, trust, or emotional connection with a child or teen so they can manipulate, exploit, and or abuse them, right? So whatever issue the child may be experiencing, obviously these offenders pretend to be going through the same thing, some kind of compassion, some kind of, relation. I can relate to what's going on. And they're obviously, they study, they conduct their own research. Everyone, unfortunately, has a job to do, good, bad, or indifferent. And so we have to do a better job as parenting, as a community, as reporting, as observation, right? So that's just our role, what we have to do. But that is what grooming is. So essentially, this is all about relationships or online relationships that these predators are trying to build, right? And, again, being inquisitive, it's better to be safe than sorry, right? So be nosy, right? Be involved. There are settings we can consider for technology, the social media platforms, parental consent, parental controls, and so forth, right? So number of things to do. Again, your digital footprint, this goes for all of us, right? Your digital footprint, pretty much anything that's online, any platform, any posting, any distribution, whether it's email, text, cloud-based chat, or what have you, is pretty much archived, right? It's pretty much time-stamped into several different data sources, several different platforms, and ways to be identified, right? This is where the AI comes in. And we're going to talk about different series with AI elements, things to consider, how the technology works, different series, different show coming soon, right? So again, as I mentioned, we'll talk about true crime. We're also going to talk about other components that you all need to know, especially reporting and engaging some of the federal partners such as the FBI, Secret Service, and so forth. But back to this ourrescue.org, some tips they provide to consider safeguarding ourselves with our digital footprint. So again, privacy settings to safeguard personal and family photos and videos, right? Be careful what you post also, because people can take your voice off of social media, your image and likeness off of social media, and consider or using AI to recreate that almost to 100% or a certain high percentage of likeness. So that's being used in a lot of scam cases also. Some other tips you can consider: remove content that may not represent you accordingly, right? If you have to think twice about posting, probably shouldn't do it, right? So again, delete old accounts, especially public accounts, check your settings, change your passwords, right? I'm adding additional content in there. Determine what you're comfortable with about sharing. Again, as I said, if you have to think about it, don't post it or take it down, right? There's nothing wrong with adjusting or making changes. Determine what you're comfortable with. Ask others for permission before you share their photos and their children, right? So again, be vigilant about what you're posting and always updating your lifestyle. I know for influencers, it's like the allure of letting your followers know what you're doing. But guess what? These predators are watching. The criminals are watching also. The scammers are watching also. So again, we all have to do better. Again, passwords, change your passwords, right? Often, right? Avoid posting photos that show your address. Do not post your address online for any reason, street and or specifically the numbered address, right? Or where you are currently. So again, good idea if you want to post vacation photos, maybe wait, maybe delay a day or so, or after you get back, post after you get back, right? You're like, that's no fun. Well, it's about protecting yourself, protecting your family and loved ones, right? So for more information, you can take a look at ourrescue.org, type that in, and they have brochures. You can download a digital copy for additional information. Check the website. They offer a wide variety of services here and several different ways you can take part in the cause, being of support, being a volunteer, and so forth. But again, it's about deterring these kind of cases from happening, from occurring. Jose Teran has some answering to do, and we'll see what the outcome is, what the charges are, if there's additional charges based upon his statements and the other findings in his devices and his other digital footprint, his print also, right? So we're going to look into that. Investigators are going to examine and make a determination, and we'll see if there's a larger agency or organization in play, right? I want to thank you. Again, this is my series, The Dr. Detective, a PhD true crime podcast brought to you by True Crime Talk Channel. So we have a lot of exciting things to do. As terrible as the story is, again, be vigilant. Thank you. Please like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.